Have you ever heard that joke? The one that goes, a priest, a rabbi, and an imam walk into a bar. Well, what if I told you about a time when a failed artist, a revolutionary on the run, a psychoanalyst in training, and a future dictator all walked into the same city? And it's not a joke, it's history. The year is 1913, the city is Vienna, and the cast of characters includes Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Leon Trotsky, Josip Broz Tito, and even Sigmund Freud. Picture this. It's January 1913. A man with a thick, bushy mustache and a worn-out coat steps off a train at Vienna's North Station. He's carrying a simple wooden suitcase and a third-class ticket. His passport is under the name Stavros Papadopoulos, but his real name is Iosif Vissarionovich Djugashvili, the man we would come to know as Joseph Stalin. He was on the run from the Tsar's secret police, sent to Vienna by Lenin himself. His mission: to write a pivotal essay on a topic that was tearing the Austro-Hungarian Empire apart, the national question. How should Marxists handle the competing loyalties of ethnicity, language, and nationhood? Stalin, a Georgian in a Russian-dominated movement, was chosen to figure it out. He found a place to stay with a fellow Russian émigré family, the Troyanovskys, just a short walk from the magnificent Schönbrunn Palace. For a month, he spent his days hunched over books in imperial libraries and his evenings writing what would become Marxism and the National Question. This essay would solidify his reputation as an intellectual heavyweight within the Bolshevik Party and shape Soviet policy for decades. He was a man of intense focus, quiet and brooding. But what's truly mind-boggling is who he might have passed on the street. Just a few kilometers away, in a cheap men's dormitory, lived another man with a distinctive mustache, a struggling artist recently rejected for the second time by the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts. His name was Adolf Hitler. At 24, he was broke, bitter, and spending his days peddling his watercolor paintings of Viennese landmarks to tourists. He was a world away from the political machinations of the revolutionaries. While Stalin was wrestling with Marxist theory, Hitler was absorbing the toxic blend of anti-Semitism and pan-German nationalism that festered in Vienna's coffeehouses and political pamphlets. Vienna wasn't just a city of art and music for him, it was a crucible of resentment where his hateful ideology began to take shape. Now, let's talk about those coffeehouses. Vienna, in 1913, was famous for them. Places like Café Central and Café Landmann were the beating heart of the city's intellectual life. They were called the city's public living rooms, and on any given day you could find the sharp-witted intellectual Leon Trotsky holding court. Unlike the secretive Stalin, Trotsky was a flamboyant and charismatic figure. He'd been living in Vienna for several years by this point, editing a radical newspaper called Pravda, not to be confused with the more famous Pravda that would become the official paper of the Soviet Union. He loved to debate politics, literature, and philosophy over coffee and cake, surrounded by his circle of admirers. Can you imagine the scene? Stalin, on one of his rare breaks from writing, might have decided to visit Café Central, a known haunt for Russian exiles. He could have walked right past a table where Trotsky was passionately arguing a point. The two men would later become mortal enemies, their power struggle deciding the fate of the Soviet Union. But in that fleeting moment in 1913 Vienna, they were just two revolutionaries, 2 points in a vast constellation of dissent, orbiting the same sun of a dying empire. It's said they knew of each other but disliked one another intensely even then. Trotsky dismissed Stalin as a gray blur, while Stalin viewed Trotsky as an arrogant intellectual. But the cast doesn't stop there. Also in Vienna that year was a charming, ambitious metalworker from Croatia. He was enjoying the city's opportunities, working at the Daimler automobile factory in a nearby town and often visiting Vienna for pleasure. He was a skilled fencer and a decent pianist. His name? Josip Broz, who would later adopt the famous moniker Tito and go on to lead Yugoslavia as its president for nearly 3 decades, skillfully navigating a path between the West and the Soviet bloc. In 1913, he was just another anonymous face in the crowd, a subject of the very empire whose ethnic tension Stalin was studying. And, overseeing it all, in a sense, was the father of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud. From his famous apartment at Berggasse 19, he was busy exploring the hidden depths of the human mind, developing theories about the unconscious drives that shape our actions. It's a strange and powerful irony that as these future leaders, driven by their own immense egos and ideologies, were crossing paths, Freud was just a few streets away, trying to understand the very psychological forces that would lead men like them to plunge the world into unprecedented conflict. So why Vienna? Why this city at this specific moment? In 1913, Vienna was the capital of the sprawling, multi-ethnic Austro-Hungarian Empire. It was a magnet for people from all corners of Europe: artists, scientists, musicians, and, of course, political dissidents. It was a cosmopolitan melting pot, a place of immense cultural vibrancy but also deep political and social tension. The old world of emperors and aristocrats was crumbling, and in the cracks, new, radical ideas were taking root. The city was a laboratory for the 20th century. For Hitler, it was a school of hate. For Stalin and Trotsky, it was a revolutionary chessboard. For Tito, it was a glimpse of a wider world beyond his village. Of course, these men didn't have a secret club where they met up on weekends. Most of them never even met. Hitler and Stalin likely never laid eyes on each other. But their close proximity in this singular city speaks volumes about the era. It was a moment pregnant with possibility and danger. The world was on the brink of the First World War, a conflict that would shatter the old empires and create the vacuum that these very men would later fill. Within a year, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, would be assassinated, an event that took place in Sarajevo, another city within the empire. This act would light the fuse for World War I. The war would scatter our Viennese residents. Stalin would be arrested and exiled to Siberia. Hitler would enlist in the German army. Trotsky would be forced to flee Austria. Tito would be drafted into the Austro-Hungarian army and sent to fight against the Russians. Their brief, shared time in Vienna was over. It was a fleeting, almost unbelievable convergence of historical figures. A moment when the architects of the 20th century's greatest tragedies and transformations all breathed the same air, walked the same cobblestone streets, and perhaps even waited for the same tram. It serves as a powerful reminder that history is not made in a vacuum. It's made in cities, in coffee houses, in crowded apartments by individuals whose paths cross in ways they can never fully comprehend at the time. The Vienna of 1913 was a crossroads of destiny, a place where the seeds of the future, for better and, tragically, for much, much worse, were all sown at once. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this slice of history as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more deep dives into the stories you thought you knew. Let me know in the comments which of these figures' Vienna experience you find most intriguing. Until next time.